Hello, Alex. Good to see you again.
Good to be back, mate.
Let's chat.
Let's chat. Good way to start it. Let's go straight in.
I'm going to pass it over to you to tell us all what we're going to discuss on this episode.
Let's do it. These episodes are kicking off faster and faster. I like it. So this one is, so those who caught on to episode 12, so this one is that the team have got their leads coming in now, seems to be sorted. They're fixing their conversions after the demos are moving a bit faster, but the sales cycle is getting far too long. So to maybe start with, let's sort of look at, first of all, what is a sales cycle?
So before we do that, though, the team being, this is Writrrr, the AI consulting company.
Sorry, yes. Excuse me.
With the CEO, Jordan, just so you know who we're talking about.
Yes. So this is Jordan, the CEO and founder of Writrrr with the 3 R's.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the AI platform that can help draft proposals for law firms.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very meant to be enterprise B2B software.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've got an issue now that Jordan has identified that the sales cycle is taking too long to close. So they've said they've got, I believe it was 2 years, and they've got 10 customers, which is good. You know, these customers are paying a lot of money. Maybe that's a good rate. But their board has said, according to existing investors and future investors, we want to see that 10 turn into 30 next quarter. So the next 3 months, we got to 3x the business, 3 times the business. So
sounds easy.
Sounds easy. Is that a rare comment I've heard? No. I've heard that. I usually hear like, we need hypergrowth or some terrible tagline I hear a lot.
10x,
oh,
10x.
God, I hate that.
25x.
Yeah. Let's take the anomaly that happened once 10 years ago and try to replicate that in a local business. So short answer is, I think firstly, in this exact scenario, for what the board has said, I would put it back to Jordan to help manage expectations. You're probably never going to stop them. They were always, and rightfully so, they're probably investors as well. They want to see returns. You've got to be improving. You've got to show as much as you can. They also know, and I've met with a lot of board and a lot of investors, they're not stupid. They a lot of the time they'll set the bar so high because they want to set these expectations, because if they set it slightly low, they go, we'll do a couple things, but if they go, we really got to push ourselves to do as much as we can, and maybe they hit 80% of that or 60% of that, and then maybe that's enough. But so they want to do, so they've gotten 10 years. So first of all, sales cycle is sort of what it's sounding like now. So it's the duration between, and again, this varies from every company, but it's the duration between when you've sort of identified a lead or engaged with a lead. So you met a potential client to when they've signed the contract and you can start invoicing them. And that, again, varies for everyone. If you think of a sales cycle of, B2C, right, is almost instantaneous. You can go into a store, check out a couple things, you see how you like, you pay for it. You look at stuff like Canva, you can have a sales cycle of, you tried the free trial for 3 days, you really liked it, you bought it, you paid for it, where the sort of money sort of comes in. The B2B enterprise stuff, typically, again, depending on how complex, I'm going to use the sake of anything above a couple of $1,000s a year. So business enterprise means multiple stakeholders. It's an internal process across teams. It's not just someone buying Miro, and just sort of kicking off internally. So that's going to be usually on the industry averages, and I'll just take Australia because I'm most familiar here, but it's around about 12 months. And that's like, you met someone at a conference, they went back, you met with their team, they did a business case, you met, they've got to recycle old people, like old processes out. It's about 12 on average. And these guys, it's 2 years, which is pretty standard in the early days. I've heard, somewhere between 6 to 18 months. 6 months is good. And again, this will vary for each sort of company. So sometimes, we've spoken about it in previous episodes, you will find someone who's right place, right time. They've got the problem. They're in desperate need. They're in a lot of pain right now. They need to do something about it. I've worked in companies where we've done it in 4 weeks. And it's like, those have, I had an old boss used to call them a bluebird. And it's like these rare anomalies that you hope happen. Statistically speaking, you're not going to get a lot of them. But occasionally they'll pop out and you're like, great, 4 weeks. Whereas most people, you got to find, educate them, take them through that process and that whole change management. So usually 12 months, I try to say, for most enterprises. If you can get them down to 6 months to 3 months in enterprise is fantastic. If you're down to 3 months and you're potentially charging anywhere between 10, 20, 30, 50K a year or more, or sort of 100K a year, if you can get in 3 month bursts, that's fantastic. Looking at the volume as well. But I think so, you can measure that a bunch of different ways. The hard thing is in the early days. So these 10 customers here that Jordan's got, he said it's taken 2 years. Now there's probably, same as any sort of version of a startup, it's that momentum. So the first couple of customers probably took 2 years. Once they did it and they proved it and it worked, the next couple probably took 18 months and the next ones took 12 because they got faster with the process. They got faster moving with it. So usually it's going to take you longer in the beginning. To go from 2 years to 3 months is, in my opinion, if I was Jordan, I would say we'll do our best. Like, here's all these things we can do. Reality is you're probably not, unless you find a heap of those blue birds. But
you won't find 20.
You won't find it 20. And what's worse, and this is the thing that no one wants to talk about, but I'm going to raise it, is that for argument's sake, he hits the 20. In the next 2 months, for some reason, he goes hardcore and he hits 20 clients straight away. That board will come back to him and say, we need 80 in the next quarter. It never ends.
Yeah.
It's a highway that never ends. So what you just got to keep, and
don't make people too happy.
Yeah, right. Manage how happy you make people. Expectations. Expectation management. Don't give them everything at once. So that's like having that there. So I think, so back to the point of the sales cycle, there's a bunch of things you can do. Again, this varies across companies, the same as lead generation, everything else. What it'll be is, though, like always, talk to your customers, find out what's going on, find out what the process is. Usually there's a lot of stuff on enterprise sales. A16Z does a really good Miller-Hyman technique. And they go through, it's the whole enterprise stuff, find the champion, identify the blockers, who is the IT buyer. You've got to go through and make sure IT approves of you, procurement approves of you, the economic buyer approves of you. So there's things in that thing that you can shorten. And one of the best things you can do is take control of it with the client. So if you hope to God they take their time to make that decision, most of the time they've never done this before. Whether they'll admit to it or not, but they're probably looking for assistance if they wanted there, and saying, here is what the road usually looks like. Like, here's our FAQs for the IT team. Here is our vendor forms we usually give people. I would hazard a guess your boss wants to see a business case. I would hazard a guess your team wants to sign off on it, and walk them through that and try to speed it up. People still at the end of the day will have their own version of doing things, but if you can try to take the lead and not take the lead, but I guess guide them on that process, you can find that when the person wants to do it, they'll take you up on a lot of those things. It's also a very quick way to figure out if it's not the right time, because you'll pave a path in front of them and they don't take the first step.
Yeah.
Probably not ready. I think there is things you can do to shorten it, but it gets to a point. I think 3 months is extremely good in my opinion. 6 months is great for a lot of these enterprise, large B2B stuff. But there's certain things that are out of your control. And I think I was saying to you before about like poker. Like, you can be the best skilled poker player in the world, but there's some things that'll be out of your control of what you get dealt and what happens. So at the end of the day, companies, particularly complex ones, they do take time and they are busy and their internal politics and they've got other stuff going on. So the idea that they want to increase the company by 3x in 3 months, my advice would be, yes, that's a good thing to aim for. Fine. If you're stuck on that, I would highly guess please reduce that. And I try to look at that and frame it in that light and go, it took us 2 years to get to 10, but you want us to go to 3x in 3 months, which is an exponential amount of increase. I always go, well, that's an outcome to the effort that we do, or the outcome to the action that we do today. I'd say to Jordan or back to the board, not that they would want to hear this, but I would pose the question, well, what do we change what we're doing today? Because if we keep doing what we're doing, we'll always get what we've always got. So what do we change today that's going to 3x that? And if they go through that and go, to date, we've demoed to 100 people and we've closed 10. It's a pretty good conversion rate. So a 10% conversion rate, you want to get 300. So you want to get 20 new ones. So you've got to go and try and find 200 people to meet. That's 200 people in the next 3 months. But if your sales cycle is currently 2 years, then those 200 people you meet aren't going to close for 2 years. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, and I cannot say how many times I've had this conversation and been involved with these like leadership team meetings about this, and they go, yeah, but we need to increase growth here. And it's like, you have no control over that. You have zero control over whether they buy then. All you can control is, filling the funnel, meeting more, creating more of those opportunities so you can hedge your bets and put sort of more in. And you can help refine that pipeline down more. So how can you make it a simpler, easier process, and you got to pull a bunch of levers as well. So we talk about this a lot. There is no, you don't have control over your market and your buyers' actions. All you have control over is the levers you can pull to influence them. And yeah, again, most of the time it's changes that have an effect over time. Instantaneous levers. Everyone searches for it. Everyone asks for it. How do we fill the pipeline with 50 leads this week? I don't know. It's a great question, right? Do we?
I hope you have a lot of money.
Yeah,
to
right.
spend on that, yeah.
Or you're willing to annoy a lot of people and
Yes.
call around the clock. It's possible, but I think once again, if you narrow in, you look at those next 3 months and you destroy yourself to try to get there, well, after those 3 months are done, you're going to be sitting there exhausted and destroyed. You're probably going to sever relationships because you're going to annoy people and you're going to push people that aren't ready. And then at the end of the month, even if you're so lucky enough to get there, it's going to the target's going to move again. So I would say for sort of these ones, focus more on compounding improvements. Obviously, do it faster. You've always got to have a sense of urgency. That's non-negotiable. But you've got to move quickly and stack it and see yourself getting better. My advice is always, and investors and boards may not like hearing this, but it's like take a 12-month run up. And there's an old saying of like, it was people overestimate what they can do in 12 months, but they underestimate what they'll do in 3. And it's that whole thing of in 3 months you could have a whole new business, and I think you have the right to have those really huge goals in 3 years, because you've got enough time and things you can change between now and then. So yeah, I think back to the point on the sales cycle there, like if you're changing Coca-Cola's CRM, that could be a 2-year process. That's huge, and it's probably a staged one as well, which is a good point as well, because if making that entry point, as you say, if you go to make this huge change, it's daunting, it's complicated. But if you just break it all down and go, hey, let's start with this little division. Let's start with this one team. It'll 3 people. We can get started for $1,000 and we'll get moving. We'll do this. And then if it works, POCs for these complex ones tend to be very successful and very preferable by the client. They go, we like it. We want to try it. We don't want to uproot everything we're doing because that's terrifying. But we'll use a little group over here. We'll set them up. We'll pay for it. And we can also do like a bit of a business case. So let's go, hey, during this POC or trial, whatever you want to call it, we want to be able to see these 5 things and help them with that. I've done that very recently around, hey, during this trial, we want this and this and this. And I wrote a list and said like criteria next to it. Did we achieve it? Did we not? What was the comment? Is it a must have? Is it a nice to have? And then at the end, you go through with them and you go, well, it looks like we ticked all the boxes. Is this going to make sense? And they go, actually, yeah, no, I did. It was actually really good. No, I really enjoyed it. I'll just make sure I get the business case and we'll kick off. So yeah, breaking it down a bit further so that sales cycle, hopefully, they can get started earlier.
I've got a question for you. So in this case, you would assume that there is some people who are a bit closer to buying, though. So presumably it's not like Writrrr or Jordan doesn't have no prospects that are closer to buying than first contact. Do you not push too hard with them to get all of them over the line? Because let's say if you did have 20 pretty close to buying, and then you fulfill the investors' wishes, yeah, next month it's just 80, or next quarter, should I say, it's just 80.
Yeah, and I think for that, and I guess that's the positive light of this, and I agree with that. It's like, and you're right, I didn't even consider the existing pipeline. And if you do have people there, it can sometimes be the motivating factor to not pressure. That's never a good reason to pressure anyone. But if it is to create some urgency, and even my old boss at the company I was talking about before, he actually was really honest with them, and he'd say like, hey, we're about to go through a capital fundraising round. It feels like we meet all the criteria. You're going to go ahead with it. Is it at all possible? Could we kick this thing off next month? What would have to happen? And it was a really honest answer. And every time they did it, they respected it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because they were like, again, that whole human element.
Yeah.
And they were like, that's a fair question. And they have a business, right? So they've got their own executive stuff they have to deal with. So, and a lot of them were like, yeah, actually, I would need to get a business case, get this thing off, but I've got budget for 20 grand right now. And you're like, okay, well, let's start with 20 grand. Let's start here.
Yep.
And we'll get you on the books and we'll kick off this point. And we did that like multiple times. And it's so interesting when you have that. They've got to be at the point, if you've just met them, that's a bit much.
Yep.
But if you've sort of highlighted it, feels good, it's going in the right direction, as you said, if they're in that point where they might be further down, I think having a really open, honest conversation and just going like, we really want to try and get here. What's the chance? And they might go like, hey, mate, thanks for your honesty, but we're 6 months off anything.
Yes.
You go, great, no stress.
That's fine too,
Yeah. Well, thanks for your honesty. We'll get back to you. So yeah,
you have to deliver that one with conviction, though, right? So you can't half-ass that thing. But yeah, I can see how that would be respected if you come in and you are open and honest. But if you kind of deliver it, if you don't mind, please, just could you? Yeah,
that's right. Because if you're bashful and if you're shy about it or you pull back, it's funny, right? It's almost a sense of trust, right? Because then in my mind, as you just said, then I was like, well, what are they getting at? Like, they full of crap. They just want me to close it quickly. But if you know when people are being authentic with you, you know when they're being honest. And if people say that stuff, and at this point, like, I think people do respect that if it does come from a place of honesty. Problem is, and what we ran into back then as well, was what I was saying before. The people who did go ahead, people think what they've always gotten is just a given, like their expectations then rise. If you're closing 20 a month, then they want 30 a month, and that whole point. So if you do that, that's sort of like, let's squeeze out, let's get done what we can get done. But then if it happens, to your point before, then the team and the executives and the investors go, well, it can be done. You've just proven it. So triple next month again. And then you go back to those people again. You're like, hey, listen, we're going through a raise. And you do it again. They go, well, you just told me that last week. I'm like, no, go away.
Yes.
And in that case, you deserve to get fobbed off because you're being insincere and you're going to start going on there. So yeah, I think to answer that question, you are right. What in the pipeline can you close now? And can you
don't close too much of it though?
Yeah, or close it, but don't tell them.
Don't tell the investors. Okay.
Yeah. Having I remember there was one we used to do of like if we had and use it as you wish, but I'm just being honest. There'd be ones where I had a really great week and you'd meet these like 6 or 7 clients, which is like a huge week, but I'd only tell them I met like 5 and got good,
chuck a couple
or
into
like
next
3.
Week.
And then they'll so just
even that shit out. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
And if I had a bad week next week, I'm like, oh, these other guys, like, oh, you're on fire. Like, no, I just had a very lucky week the week before. So investors probably a different stage. Maybe be honest with them, but don't be honest with your internal team though. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Sales leaders don't need to be honest. They got this far. That's funny. But yeah, so I think I think if they're helping him get along, that is a good question too, right? And I think this is when you can use your secret weapon. You can sub in people like Jordan is another one too. Usually, again, if a sales cycle's not moving, a lot of the time it's either because you're usually bottlenecked to the wrong person, that it's not the right time. But a lot of the time, if you can get their executive team involved, and I've seen this so many times, if their executive team comes in, their CEO pops in and goes, yeah, let's sign off for this now, hurry up, let's get this done. It gets done. And they move it forward. And I've seen this work before too, of at the right time, bringing in your CEO, and it's almost like matching, like CEO to CEO. If you ask it, they're going to tell you to go away. But if you said like, hey, listen, our CEO really wants to meet your boss and we would like to meet your executive team, because if we're going to partner here, he would love to understand what you guys need. He would love to introduce himself. And if you like, he can maybe talk about the future. You know, it's like if you guys were to go with us, what do the next 5 years look like? And I've seen that work really well. And then it buys the CEO sort of the plausible deniability to go like, okay, great. Well, it's great meeting everyone. And they say like, so how do we get this thing started? And then if CEO to CEO can go like, oh, well, yeah, no, let's get this done. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll call it on next week. And so there's all these things you can do, tactics, I guess. But I think the short answer is sales cycle. It's not one thing. Good idea on that, looking at existing pipeline. But like everything, like a product, the success of it will come from heaps of little tweaks and identifying, okay, there's a big gap here. Why is there a gap there? Let's test that and do it again. Or let's go talk to people and get market research back. So yeah. What's your thoughts if you're in that position there and Jordan was like, hey mate, what do I do from here? I don't know what to tell my investors.
Investors, yeah. Well, actually, the first point I thought of was the old saying, you can shear a sheep many times, but you can only skin it once. So if you are going to throw the Hail Marys, I reckon I'd be bearing in mind that you can probably do that once in a quarter. Do the whole like try and push it through faster, but you might not be able to do that every quarter.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I'd be looking at existing pipeline and seeing how many I wanted to try and get over the line. If there wasn't that much existing pipeline, I'd be having kittens in this case, in all honesty. But I would be trying to manage expectations as well. I agree. You wouldn't want to be you'd actually want to hit that target.
Yes.
You want to miss that one.
Yeah. Or if you can hit it sustainably.
Yeah. But if in this case, you're probably not going to be able to. I'd say that's unlikely.
Yeah.
That you've got 10 over 2 years and all of a sudden you're going to have 20, unless you've improved things and you've got much better over time, which is possible as well. But yeah, existing pipeline I'd be looking at, and then I'd go backwards from there because I think you've got a lot of the tactical specifics covered.
I think also that's a good point you were saying, like having that when you talk to those board or the investors, because you're not just talking about this scenario. It's sort of because you should have a good relationship with them and getting them on the same page and not educating them, because I want to not make that sound patronizing, but it is like I've actually seen this happen a lot of times. I had a friend of mine who was the chief product officer, and he was really high up in this really big company, and he said the board members and the investors are sort of the older generation because they've got the money, they've been more experienced, they're at a point in their careers that they can be involved at this level. But in a B2B SaaS company, there's something that they've never worked in, because it's only in the last couple of years, or 10, 15 maybe years, that this has emerged as an industry. And so these board members look at the business like they would a restaurant business or like a law firm, or and so they bring these old expectations with them. And he said it was a huge part of it. His first 3 months was just re-educating them, not in a way to pull the wool over their eyes, but like to sort of go, hey, this is how it works. And to that point then sort of went through and said, hey, here is how it works. We meet someone, they close, their industry averages are here, and get that data. And if you again, it's like pleading a case. If you can show the evidence and go, like, I want what you want. I want 100 customers next quarter. But the reality is the effort to create a customer is this. The time it takes is this. We've identified that the bottlenecks are here, here, and here. It's going to take us 3 or 4 months to fix this. We got the same goal you have, but like we can't pull a rabbit out that quickly. So like, here's what we want to do instead, and then the whole re-educating. How about we look at the next 12 months or 24 months, and we think that if we make these changes over time, we should get there, and there is every reason. You might have to go into the realm of like, we have runway for 3 months, and that's a reality you just have to face and figure it out. But I think sometimes with those sort of conversations, whilst, yes, figure out a way to answer that question, but I think there is probably more value, because hopefully, and you try to say to them, it's not about getting the next quarter's budget. I want to hit next 5 years and make this $100 million company, or 6 years, or whatever it is. And we want to exit, and we all want a bit of the pie when it leaves. That's our goal, not to kill ourselves the next 3 months. And you'd find most people agree with that. You can't keep saying that and buying yourself more time.
Limited shots with some of these tactics, but
correct.
If you're going to use it, make sure you know.
Be honest, because you can't remember too many lies.
Very tough to do that.
Awesome, but no, that's probably the main thing about that, right? Like, is like just dive into the process, find out where the bottlenecks are. Back to, I believe, episode 12 as well, right? Like the sales cycle usually extends because of fear and anxiety and the effort it takes. If you can simplify it, de-risk it, and make it very appealing to take the next steps to acquiring you, that should reduce the process. Until you hit a floor, that'll be the minimum time to convert, or the minimum sales cycle. And that is, unless their hair's on fire and they move in a week, most times it'll take internal processes to move. So I think that's it. And I had one note here I was going to say as well, is it's the long you can influence people 12 months before that.
Yes.
And we've spoken about that in the past. Yes. Is usually sales cycles get extended because they're still educating themselves, they like it, they're not sure, and you've got to educate their team. But if you could somehow, before they even get to that point, and you can talk to them about the problem and help them see the problem and help them identify they need help, and show and build that trust with them and show them and sort of give them those tools way earlier on, by the time they're ready to go, it should be a much faster thing. And they go, hey, we've been following you for ages. We saw a case study you did with a company that looks like ours. We want that exact thing. We get it. We see it now. And you can almost manufacture that process and not just hope and wait that someone is in a lot of trouble and needs to make a move. I was going to say there's more stuff to go into that, but look up the enterprise stuff. I think it's also Sales Market Fit, which I mentioned last time, talks a lot about this as well. Follow Gav. But there's stuff on A16Z that talk about how to reduce those cycles and how to sort of get a bit easier.
Cool. A16Z, Sales Market Fit, awesome resources for that episode. Thanks, Alex. I think that's an incredible episode. Thank you again for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for listening to my rambling. It's great fun.
Talk soon.
See you, mate.